It's a perfect timing that we got to Zehirut and Aseret Yemei Tshuva. It's a time to be very aware and careful. Rosh Hashanah, as great as it is, of course, you can't go to Yom Kippur without Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, you're not allowed to. It says, Hashem, the David Hashem, Ori veYishi. Ori is the light. That's Rosh Hashanah. Yishi, my Savior, is Yom Kippur. On Rosh Hashanah, you're not allowed to do vidur. You're not allowed to say, Shamnu Bagadnu. You're not allowed to say, I made a mistake. It's about first seeing the big picture. Seeing the light. Ori. See the big light. See that you're part of the Jewish people. See the big picture. I'm part of the Jewish nation. I'm not involved now with my small sins and my challenges and my difficulties. But now we're in the days where it's time to go into the nuances, into the small details of life. So, Messilat Yesharim, as we spoke about, the first chapter we talked about Olam Haba, the importance of understanding that the soul and the idea of Olam Haba, the eternity, the connection to God, godliness. Now we're at Zrizut. Zrizut has 4 parts. In every chapter, every character that we are working on here in Mesilat Yesharim, we're working on what's called building character, building personality. So, in order to do that, the Ramchal tells us there's 4 parts. Klal, Prat, Kniya, and Hefsed. The 4 parts to every. This is the layout for the whole book. For each chapter, for each character, you have to have 4 parts. Part number 1 is understanding the overview. That's what we're going to do this week. The first part of Zehirut is Bevi'ur Midat HaZehirut. Okay? Then we're going to go to Prat, which is what do I have to do practically? Then, it's not enough to know what to do, you have to have motivation. That's Kniya. How do I motivate myself? A lot of people know what to do, but they don't do it because they don't have the motivation. And then you have to do what's called Hefsed, which is the upkeep, the maintenance. If you don't do that, you lose it. So those are the 4 parts of each chapter. So now we're going to see the big picture. What's the big picture? Hine Inyan Zehirut. You have the books, and I can tell you where we are in what page it is. I mean, if you can see it, find it. Zehirut. What is Zehirut? Just to give you an understanding, Zehirut means paying attention, means being aware, means becoming a person that you take control of your life, you take control of your freedom of choice, you have Bchira Chofshit. How do you take control of that and not just let your desires or your circumstances lead you, and you're not in control, you're just kind of being dragged by the circumstances. How do you become a person that is free? A person that is a human being. A person that makes choices and makes the right choices. The opposite of Zehirut is to be drunk or habit. Habit is a mechanism that we have in us that we can act out of mechanical behavior. We have in us the ability to turn into machines. We have in us a button that's called cruise control. It's called habits. You press that button and you can do all the mitzvot, you can do everything, but you are not there. We're not just talking about bad habits. You're davening today because you davened yesterday, that's negative. You're not present. You're not there. You're not making a choice that I'm going to daven now. That's why it's so important not to run into davening. You're supposed to first few minutes early, sit down, think about what you're going to do, plan, understand what am I about to do in everything. You're going to make a bracha. Think for a second. What am I going to do here? Not just when you make the bracha. But anyway, he goes into every detail how to get Zehirut. So how do we do this? Hine inyan azirut. Hu שיהיה אדם נזהר במעשיו ובענייניו, כלומר, מתבונן ומפקח על מעשיו ודרכיו. So what is זהירות? That a person is cautious, is careful with his מעשיו or his actions, ובענייניו, and his personality. It's not enough just to be aware of your actions. You have to be aware also of your personality. That's a bigger... How do you know what your personality is? You can't really know. If you see somebody walking down the street screaming and yelling in the street, is that an angry person? Is that a guy that has a personality of an angry person? I'm asking you. A guy screaming, yelling.
Yeah, of course.
The answer is
yes.
You have no idea.
No.
Because
you can see it, no?
No.
He's proving it.
No. Because what a personality is something that happens again and again and again and again. That person could be the most kind, gentle, non-angry person, but something happened at that moment he got angry, but it's not who he is.
Okay.
So you can never know a person's personality from a one-time interaction. Something that happens again and again and again and again, that already is an indication this is already a personality, and this is something that needs to be. That's why it's to be worked on. That's why it's so important. The halacha is, it's not lashon hara. If you're going to date some girl, you meet her, she seems very nice, but you have to speak to people that know her very closely, people that lived with her in, her roommates in school, or people that have been with her like very closely, and then they could tell you she has a problem. Only people that are very close with that person and see their, things that are repeating itself over and over and over again, it's only something you can catch if it's something that happens over and over and over again. Otherwise, it could be a one-time act that is not the personality of the person. And that's why it's very interesting. Judge people favorably, because you never know. You never know from a one-time interaction what kind of person that is. And it's an important thing. It's a bigger picture. So we said, what is Zeirut? She'adam nizhar b'ma'asav u'inyanав. Klomar, what does it mean? Mitbonen mufakech al ma'asav u'drachav. It means that you have to be reviewing your actions and your character. Hatovim hem im lo. You have to be sort of looking at yourself from the outside. You have to be watching yourself, right? How do you do this? Or watching your movie, right? Of yourself. You're the star of the show, and you watch yourself and see, how am I behaving? Hatovim, are my actions good or not? Levilti azov nafsho lesakanat avadon chas v'chalila v'lo yilech b'malach hergelo. Here, and that's the key. And a person should not go and let his habits keiver ba'afela, like a blind person walking in the smog or the mist. What does that mean? When a blind person walks at night, he walks with a candle, so that people could see him and could help him, guide him. But if there's mist, if there's the clouds, and there's fog, heavy fog, it doesn't help him. He walks with a candle. You can't see anything. Have you ever driven in the fog? You can't see in front of you in the heavy, heavy fog. You can't see anything. Your lights are on, and you can't see one thing in front of you. Did I ever try that? So, if that, it won't help you that blind person walks with the candle. If a person is not going to become aware of his habits, then even if he would like to, it's not going to help him. Because like we said, it's like a blind person in the dark. He would like to, it bothers him. It bothers you, but if you don't have a game plan, if you don't have a program, how are you going to change it? So what does it help you? So you're walking with the candle. You say, I have the Torah, but it's not enough. What can you do this is the reality? Like we said, this world is the dark world. This world is the fog. You're walking in the fog. What can you do? First of all, again, it's just understanding. We want to just understand the problem. Problem is that a person that is not mitbonen u'mefaker, does not overlook, does not oversee, right? It's called a mefakeach. Is someone who is a person that overlooks. You're building a building, you have a mefakeach. He looks and he sees the big picture. Are things going in the right direction? You need a mefakeach. You need to have someone
It's a commander, no?
that is a mefakeach is like a commander, but like an overseer.
Yeah.
In every building project, you have a mefakeach. He sits and he looks at the whole picture. This guy's doing this guy doing that, but you need to have the overlook. And v'zeh davar she'asechel yechayvehu vadai. And this is something that hasechel, again, we have in us a sechel, intellect. The Rambam says, the Shulchan Aruch starts off saying that when you wake up in the morning, you should imagine, Shiviti Hashem Agdi Tamid, you should imagine that God is present in front of me right now, all the time. Right? Hashem is right here. Because if you would imagine that you're standing in front of the king, this is what the Shulchan Aruch says, the way you move, the way you talk, the way you act would be very different if you experience that you're standing in front of the king. That's the opening of the Shulchan Aruch. Where did that come from? That opening? It comes from the Rambam, from the book of Moreh Nevuchim, a guide to the perplexed. The Rambam says, you are always standing in front of a king. What's the king? Your sechel. And your sechel, your king, is what communicates with the king of all kings. In other words, you have in you a very royal, there's a very royal part of yourself, and that is your sechel. And that sechel is what communicates with the creator of the world, with the Master Almighty. And that's the sechel. So God put in us a sechel. V'zeh davar she'asechel yechaveu vadai. Why? This is something that makes perfect sense. Ki achrei שיש לאדם דעה והשכל, להציל עצמו ולברוח מאבדן נשמתו, איך ייתכן שירצה להעלים עיניו מהצלתו? After God gave you this ability, de'ah ve'askel, you have knowledge, you have ability to think, to plan, to understand. That's what makes us human beings, right? Where Rashi says, when it says, right, God created nefesh chaya, ruach memalala. The ability to think is what makes us the difference between us and animals. Is the ability to think, right? Edav de'ah ve'askel. And we have the ability to run away from me'avadon nishmato. Right? God gave you a brain. So how could you not use that brain to save your soul? How would you want to ignore that? Ignore that thing that is so obvious, that God gave you a brain, gave you a soul, He gave you the brain to help you save your soul. Okay? Here the Rav Kook adds something, because we're learning with the parish of Rav Kook here, so a few little ideas. The Rav Kook says, the Ramchal says, right, you have to be aware, you have to be thinking of your actions. Rav Kook adds that you have to be very careful, especially a person that has very big aspirations, right? You want big things, you want to save the world, you want to do big things. Be very careful, to look at your actions. Like we said, that also the small details should be taken care of. Because a lot of times you're dealing with the big picture. Hey, who has time to deal with the small details? I'm running to save the world, so who cares who I trample on the way? Right? I'm stepping on people. Who cares? I'm going towards to save the world. A great person is measured by the way he acts with his small details. That's why it says that Gadol Shimusha Melimuda, the greatest learning you have from a rabbi, from a teacher, is by being with him in his regular life. To see how he is when it comes to practically living the teachings that he's talking about. Because he could say very nice things when he's sitting in his chair and he's right? And he's intellectually telling you things, but how does it translate to his life? That's what you want to see. And that's why it's so important to have a connection with a rabbi, a living connection where you experience him in the world and not just sitting in class and talking intellectually. Like we talked about kniyah, because you could know everything in your brain, but how does it translate to life? Right? We're not in kniyah yet, but what's what we're talking about. So you're very, very careful and to not get distracted of fixing the simple details. And like we said, if you don't have the details, you don't have anything. There's nothing worse than and bad than this, that a person doesn't use his brain. In other words, God gave you this incredible gift, your sechel, your ability to think, to plan, to understand, to contemplate, to make choices. And if you don't do that, there's nothing lower, there's nothing more disappointing than this, that a person is not igniting his ability to be what's a human being. What makes you a human being is your ability to make choices. So the question everyone asks, so what do you mean? If I have to review myself all the time, how do I live life? I want to just do things. I don't want to be always reviewing. Two answers to that. One answer of Zuckerman said the reviewing takes 2 minutes. At the end of the day, you review your day. It doesn't take hours. It takes 2 minutes. Second thing, they say that the difference between a wise person, the difference between chacham and pikeach. A pikeach is someone that is, how do you say, is that a wise person, he knows, in other words, a pikeach knows how to get out of a bad situation. But a wise person knows how to not get into that situation. If you think, if you plan, the time that you will save is so much greater. It does take a little slow you down. But here, Rav Kashtiel says a nice idea. He says, you have two people going on a walk, on a hike. So you have a trail. One guy starts the trail and he gets to the end of the trail. The other one comes an hour later. He says, why did it take you so long? He says, did you see the rabbits? Did you see the flowers? Did you see the, right? So you can't say that the person that is going slower, is missing out on life. He's more alive. He's more aware. He's more experiencing. So zehirut is to slow down, take a step back, and plan your strategy. Is this the right thing? Am I in the right direction? Am I going the right way? Now, he says a beautiful perush here. To explain what we're talking about, the Ramchal gives us a beautiful parable, and it's so simple to understand what he's talking about. What does he say? העושה כן, הנה הוא פחות מהבהמות והחיות, אשר בטבעם לשמור עצמם, לכן יברכו וינוסו בכל מה אשר עליהם היותו מזיק להם. Okay? Ramchal tells us, and later on he'll give us another example. He says, if you don't decide to have zehirut, if you don't decide to pay attention, to stop the how do you say the being like this, like letting your instincts or your low desires lead you, you are worse than the animals. Pachut me'abehemot. Why? Asher betiv'am nishmor atzmam. Animals have the most incredible ability, instinct of survival. They always have one ear open. They could be sleeping. You could see on YouTube a cat sleeping and someone comes and it jumps 4 meters in the air from sleeping. Boom! Like they're always right. They're always on guard. They're always aware. So us as humans, we need to have that also. The animal has it for its body. We need to have it, and that's what the whole chapter is about. How do I turn on my awareness for my soul. The same way the animal is always on guard, is always aware. How do I do that? In other words, the Ramchal is saying, this exists in the world. The animals have it. It's around. It's something that is natural. Later on, you'll see when he talks about zrizut, he'll tell you, zrizut is going against your nature, is going above nature. You're not worse than an animal if you're lazy. If you're lazy, you're doing exactly what the world is built, right? You're made from earth. There's gravity, pulls you down. It's heavy, it's slow. You're fine. No complaints that you're not zariz. Now you have to go above nature. I'm not going to say you're worse than an animal because you don't have zrizut. But zehirut, the concept of awareness for your soul, is something, there's no excuse. You have to tap into that concept. It exists. You see animals have it. You should have it for your soul. Same way, that awareness, when you feel something that is bad for your personality, bad for your soul, you should be a natural instinct. And that's what the Ramchal is talking about. How do we uncover that? How do we bring this back? That I just run 1,000 miles away. I know that is bad for me. Right? Usually you don't see animals overweight. As human beings, we have...
Maybe in a zoo.
Right? In the zoo, right? But I'm saying in general, animals, they eat what they need. They're done. Right? Children eat what they need. But later on, we kind of lose touch of our... So we're saying just become natural. Just become normal. Become natural. And later on, he gives an example of why we're in this situation. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have this natural... Right? Why is it that I won't put my hand in the fire, but I'll do something, I'll do an avera? Why is that? He'll explain why is it and how to fix it. But first of all, understanding this is the reality, this is the overview. Haolech be'olamo. Right? Blid bonenut. A person who walks in the world and says, I don't need to know anything. By the way, there's a concept that Shlomo Melech said. It says that a drunk person, noten enav bekoso v'domeh alav ha'olam kemisho. A drunk person drinks, and there's no challenges. Everything is a smooth sailing. There's no difficulties. There's no pit holes in the floor. Everything is misho. Everything is perfect, great. Messilat Yesharim is called Messilat Yesharim. How do you make this reality to be straight, where you can actually walk straight through and you not fall in the challenges? You always take the straight path. So there's the negative way, drink, and you'll get there. Or learn Messilat Yesharim, be aware, and you can also get to that place, but that's the real thing. Like we said, you can work out. You can work out and get very big muscles, or you could take steroids and give yourself muscles. Right? So there's ways to do it that are negative. There's ways that are positive. So a person that walks in this world without being aware, blid bonenut, is what's the problem? Are my ways good or bad? Is my personality good or bad? Hineu kesuma haolech asfat nahar. It's like a blind person walking on the edge of a river. He's walking on like a very, very like an edge of a river. What are the chances that he's not going to fall? If he's walking on the edge of the river blind, most chances you're going to fall. And he says it makes no difference whether you're naturally blind or you're choosing to be blind. Whether you're just choosing to put your hands on your eyes and not acknowledge that there's problems, or if you were born that way. The reality is, this world, like Rabbi Nachman says, Kol olam kulo gesher tzameo, the whole world is a very narrow bridge, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid because you have the Torah, because you have the guidance, the Messilat Yesharim, that will tell us how to not fall. But if you're not going to open your eyes, if you're not going to use the gift and the tools that God gave you, so you should be afraid, because maybe that fear will awaken you to want to take control of your life. And that's what we're talking about. And אחד, והנה ירמיהו היה מתאונן על רוע בני דורו. Time of Yirmiyahu, this is exactly what was happening. People were just acting out of instincts, out of their low desires, and they were not thinking about it. And what did he say to them? En ish nicham al rato. And that's really the job of the rabbis, being connected to a tzaddik, is to help you. They're the eyes of the nation. We're blind. They are the eyes of the nation. They tell you, wake up, see the reality. And ish, he says, people are just doing all these negative things. And ish nicham al rato lemor. Nobody is feeling bad and thinking, and they're running. Kula shav b'merutzatam kesus shotef b'milchama. People are running like a horse in battle. So this now explains to us what we were talking about before. We gave the example of animals. They're very aware of their... But why does a horse run straight into danger? The horse runs, there's spears shooting, there's people with like weapons, and why does the horse run right into the person that's standing with a spear? Why does the horse run?
There are methods to make the horse unaware of it.
So they had methods. They had all kinds of methods. They would drug the horse. They'd beat the horse. They would all kinds of methods that the horse. They would basically bypass the mechanism, that the sensor that says protect yourself, protect your body. So this and then the horse would run right into battle. Horse, elephants, all the animals that they would train to battle, and that's the way that we're talking, our reality is. The sensor that tells you, be careful for your body, there's a way to bypass it. They used to bypass the horses. And for us, since the sin of Adam and Chava, that mechanism is not working. It's not working. The sensor that says, this is right now negative for my soul. I'm sitting in a movie. It's bad. I know this is, like we said, there's Kodesh, there's Chol, and there's Tuma. You could watch a movie that's Chol, birds, naturals, a nice idea, but then there's what's called Tuma, impurity, negative, evil. And you're watching this. You should either close your eyes, close your ears, or run out. I remember once I was watching this evil movie, and I couldn't understand why don't I leave? Why am I not leaving? Because you think, I paid the money, I'm already here, everyone else is doing it. No. But you have to be aware, this is bad for me. I remember when I was a kid, I watched the movie Indiana Jones, and the guy pulls out the heart of this guy.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't sleep for like months from and that's like then. Now they're like,
It's even worse.
it's like a 1,000 million times worse. The gore and the violence, the stuff, it harms your soul. They did a survey. Kids that don't watch ever violence, they put these like sensors on them, and then they see violence, someone being killed, or they go into panic as if they're seeing that. But someone who sees it all day long, it's numb. It doesn't exist. Doesn't feel it. Doesn't see it. Which means that already the person's like, he has no feeling. How could you not be shooken up when you see something so violent and terrible?
Makes them also prone to do them themselves more, like easier to act in such a way.
Exactly. You become numb to that, to pain and suffering of other people, and and the seriousness of it. So, and we want to have that sensitivity. And I want to keep going here. So basically what we're trying to say is, Michal is saying, yes, same way the animals can lose it, we also can lose it for our soul. They can lose it for their body. The animal runs into battle and it's not afraid. It's not, what happened? They bypassed that sensor. So we want to reignite that sensor. We want to be sensitive. We want to be aware. There's a story of a rabbi that he saw some boy and a girl, a young man, a young woman, walking into the forest at night. And he said, oh no, something bad is going to happen here. I can't let them just walk alone in the forest at night. He might take advantage of her or something. So he walks behind, making sure they don't see him, and he's walking. At the end of the walk, the guy says, I had such a nice talk with you. Have a nice night. And she leaves. And the rabbi says, I don't understand. If it was me, I wouldn't be able to handle this test, But how did he do it? And then Elyon Navi comes and says, you're on I forgot exactly the message, but the message was, it's not a positive thing. If people say, oh, girls and boys should be together, the more they're together, the more they become desensitized. That's not a positive thing. It's a negative thing. It's not the way to do it. A person should feel the sensitivity, should be aware of the seriousness of the close connection between men and women, and that's not the guidance to so we see we could lose that sensitivity. We can use that awareness. We spoke about that in the first chapter, the end of the first chapter. We said we want to discover in us, how do we run away from negative things like fire, and how do we run after the positive like the magnet? And those are the two chapters that we're going to learn here. Zeirut is, how do I become aware of, if I'm now sticking my hand into the fire, if I do this negative thing, this is like sticking my hand in the fire, and I won't do that. I'm running away from it. And how do I uncover this magnet in me, this rizut, the excitement, the passion, that I'm just driven, and it's not enough to have one without the other. If you're only not doing, keeping away, then you're constantly in struggle and battle, and you feel like you're losing. But the ultimate goal is that I have such excitement from my connection to God that I don't even feel that I'm losing on other things. That's the ultimate thing. I feel so connected to God. I feel so alive that it's a great, what I'm saying? What I'm getting here is so much greater than what I can get somewhere else. Like we said, that experience of the closeness to God, that there's nothing greater. We spoke about that in the first chapter. So that's what he says. Kesus hashatuf b'milchama, and that is unfortunately that most people are just running on cruise control, and they basically give off their life. I don't know. There was a movie. It was one of the top movies on Netflix, and it was I forgot what it's called. It was a movie about the all these very high level people in Facebook, in YouTube, and very high level executives. They came out and told their story about how they're manipulating people, how they're basically taking advantage of people, destroying people's lives, and they couldn't live with it anymore. And they had to come out and say, if you guys want to know, send me a WhatsApp. I forgot what it's called. It's very powerful. These people came out and said, we can't handle it. We were high executives. We came into this job because we wanted to do good to the world. We wanted, social media is going to connect people. And we had all these wonderful ideals to help the world. And we see that it's being used to manipulate, to destroy people, it's bringing suicide, it's bringing, with young kids, all kinds of horrible things. And we will not do it anymore. So if anyone wants to know, send me a WhatsApp. I'll tell you later. My kids showed it to me. Very, very shocking and shaking up. Not a religious thing, nothing to do with religion, just people that realized that they're destroying the world instead of actually building up the world, and they took control and decided to change, which is an incredible thing. I mean, they deserve a very big. So this what he says is that holchim b'merutzat hergelam, people are running after their habit. The habits, like we said, you become a machine. You stop making choices. You stop taking control of your life. And that's the whole purpose of these days, is to really tshuva, satimet tshuva, is to be aware, is to think, where am I at? What direction am I going? Am I driving into a dead end, into a wall? Where is my path taking me? To contemplate, to take time to think, am I going in the right direction? Am I happy with the direction of my life? Am I doing positive things? Am I helping the world? Am I maximizing my potential? And this is what the Ramchal says. The Rav Kook adds here that the Ramchal says that you keep running, you just run with your habits, and you morally everything falls aside, your moral behavior, because you're plowing ahead. But the Rav Kook adds that this concept of just go flow, just flow with whatever you want to do, like flow, just like tizrom, just let yourself flow. The main mistake is understanding that if you just let yourself flow, you will flow to the sewer. That's just the way it works. Things go down, and the things that flow down to the low places. If you let yourself go with no, how do you say, pikuach, with no no reviewing yourself, and only in the future you can let yourself flow, like David HaMelech says, and that's in the later chapters. When you reach such a high level that you can say, I know whatever direction I go will be positive. That's in the future. That's like when you're a very high level. But on the lower levels, at our levels, we have to not let ourselves flow. We have to be aware of my actions, my choices, my decisions, and because otherwise we will go naturally to negative places. And that's what he says, Noflim bera'ah. So what's the answer? Why do we do this is the big question. Why do we let this happen to us? Ramchal answers. This is the technique, the trick of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is very conniving, is very wise, very smart. And you have to be on guard. Like I said, all of these companies that are trying to make you fall to pornography and to violence and to gambling, they have techniques. They have all kinds of ways. You're driving down the road, you see an advertisement, have a free coffee, have a free meal. Why? They're just giving you that for free? No, because there's a casino right next to it. They know exactly your age. They know exactly what your financial situation is. They know everything about you. They want to like make you a trap. That's why it says, Shlomo Melech says, Soneh matanot yicheh. A person who hates free gifts will be alive. Do not, in Hebrew I tell my kids always, Al chinam meshalim beyoker. For something free, you pay a very, very high price. Right? That's the secret of marketing is, give people free things. And that's why in Hebrew, when someone gives you something for free, what do you say to them in Hebrew? Ani asir todah. I am a prisoner of faith. You become a prisoner to that person that's giving you, and then you feel you owe them, and then that's how they suck you in. That's the secret of, take free this, free that, 6 months free. You're ready. They based it on you'll become habit. It will become part of your habit. These are marketing. They don't care about you. They're not there to look for your good. They're there to make more money, and unfortunately, that's the reality that's out there today.
But some persons, like God-fearing persons, really a much God-fearing persons, they will give tzedakah and do chesed. They also give like for free, but they don't want to have back. Like they really much want to do something good.
Right.
Give tzedakah.
There's rare people. The tzaddikim, they just want to give because they want to give. And then sometimes when you're taking the gift, or your parents are giving you a gift. So the gift you're taking is not you're taking because you need it, because you want it. You're taking it because you want to make them happy.
Yeah.
So you're not really taking a gift. You're giving them the opportunity to give to you. It's a different thing, right? Like you don't need it. You don't want it. You're not in that mindset of I want gifts. I want everything for free. I want everything easy. I want everything. And that's something, again, when we get to zrizut, then we'll get out of that desire of wanting everything easy, everything free. We have to go beyond nature. We have to go beyond ourselves. But we have to be aware. So why does this happen? Because the Yetzer Hara knows, right? This is the trick of the Yetzer Hara. Lachbid avodato betmidut alibot bnei adam ad shelo yishar lahem rev zman yistakel be'ezeh derech hem holchim. The Yetzer Hara wants to make you so busy that you have no time to think, what way am I going? Am I going the right direction? Because he knows. If you would just take a few minutes every day to think, to stop. You would start feeling bad. You would be aware what you're doing, and that feeling of feeling bad. Why am I doing that? I don't want to be doing that. That will give you the strength to overcome it. We know until the Industrial Revolution, 99.9% of people worked 16 hours a day. They didn't have a second to breathe, just to have food to eat. Only the aristocrats, they had 1%, they had time, they had free time. The Industrial Revolution came along, and suddenly everybody has free time. But we said free time is the number one enemy of the Yetzer Hara that doesn't want you to stop and think. So what happened? The social media, what's it called? All of the entertainment came and swallowed up all the free time. Nobody has time for anything. You have WhatsApp and Instagram and and Facebook and this and SMSs and emails. You're nonstop, and everything is urgent, and everything is exciting and fast, and music and loud, and you have to watch these the advertisement. You have to watch also these. They have these series. A series could be 100 hours. People spend 100. I can't stop. I have to watch a series. What's going to happen? And everybody's watching them. And if you don't stop,
If you stop too much and you think too much and you don't know what is good, or you don't know what you want to do, like what's the right path to go down.
That's exactly the issue. That's why we said the main purpose of life is to act. Can't all day be stopping and thinking, right? Like go people in the Far East meditate all day. No, that's not the purpose. That's what we said, and we're going to talk about the next chapter. How do you do it? 2 minutes a day. Review your day. Review your day, review your life, review yourself. Stop and think. There's special times to do it before Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos. There's certain times that you should really review, but every single day, we'll talk about that again when how to practically do it, because you have to know how to do it. Now we're just talking about the overview. This is what's needed. This is why you don't do it, and why is this? And that if you would just have that little small island of silence, of no phone, of no noise, of no distractions, and you'd be able to just think about where you're at and where you want to be, you would have this feeling of charata, of feeling of, I'm not happy with my life. That feeling of pain is a gift, and nobody wants to feel that pain. But if you're able to feel that pain, like again, the Chavat Levavot, the first book of working on character, it's called Chavat Levavot. It's called Duties of the Heart. He says, if you're not willing to take the drug, the bitter drug of becoming better, then you can't even start to move. It is painful to stop and feel the pain and ask yourself. And the Rav Kook has a whole teaching about this, about the Nebuchadnezzar, that a bug went into his nose, into his brain, and was making noise. And
wasn't it some emperor of the Romans?
The emperor, yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar is from the Babylonians, no?
It was Nebuchadnezzar, or it was Andrianus, I think. Yeah, Andrianus Caesar, the Caesar, Andrianus the Caesar, right? A bug went into his brain, and he brings a guy. He went by a guy making noise, and he didn't feel the pain, so he hired the guy to bang all day, right? That's what we do. Instead of accepting, acknowledging that soul that is screaming, listen to me, give me what I need, right? We just go to make more noise to not hear it. And that's why the largest growing disease is depression, because people are not listening to their soul, and they're trying to just distract themselves more and more, but it doesn't work. The soul will not be captive forever.
So, what if you actually do spend probably more than 2 minutes a day thinking about the fact that I should be doing more with my life, but it's not in any structured way?
But yes,
is there any
but that's the next. There's a structure here. The Ramchal is going to tell the next chapter is exactly the structure. We're going to talk. The Ramchal is very, very organized and systematic. There's a structure. There's a system. There's a way to do it. Again, and the Ramchal says that time that you make that island within your madness, that is on the level. That's Torah learning. It's not bittul Torah because people think, no, I have to be learning. No, you have to this to be aware of where you're at, where you want to be. How are you acting? How is your personality? Reviewing it. I do this every day. It's the biggest gift. Every single day. I write down, I have a time and a place. I write down my thoughts, what I did good, what I didn't do good, how am I going to make the good better? How am I going to make the negative go away? What is my game plan? And then I look over the year. I've been doing this since I was 17 years old. I didn't even know that I'm getting, now the tools are better. But I was doing it since I was 17 years old, just naturally. And it's actually my pasuk is the pasuk where it went from the Torah. Where do you learn you have to do this? Al ken yomru hamoshtim bo cheshbon. That's my pasuk. It starts with the ayin, ends with the nun. So it's like the thing I most identify with. But I'm able to look back. Rosh Hashanah comes, or now I'm able to look back my whole entire year. See what did I do good, what I didn't do good, what I want to do better next year. What do I need to? Because otherwise, how do you know? I can look at my whole entire year and review where were the challenges, where were the difficulties, and how am I going to make it better next year? What are my goals for next year based on what happened this year? It's an incredible gift to be able to have a diary. It's the biggest. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the next chapter because we're getting sidetracked. Right now, we're trying to understand the overview. Why people behave because of why is this the reality? How did it come this way? Where did it come from? The Yetzer Hara has a plan, has a strategy. He's been using it for thousands of years, and it works like a charm. So why should he change it? What's the challenge? What's the strategy? Ze me'ein atzat Paro harasha. Paro had a strategy. What did he say? The Jewish people were in Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu is the symbol of the soul. Like we said, listen to your soul. Moshe Rabbeinu is the symbol of the soul. So the soul comes and says, slavery is not good. You need to be you're not in your land. You need to be building the temple. You need to be experiencing, living life to its fullest. What does it say? Vayamen ha'am. They believed. They heard this voice, Moshe Rabbeinu, and they believed. What does Paro say? They have too much time, too much free time. Pump up the volume, the workload. Make it harder. Double the workforce. More movies, more songs, louder music, more, everything has to be more intense, more violence, more nudity, everything. They're getting distracted. Moshe Rabbeinu comes back. What do they tell him? Velo shamu el Moshe mikotze ruach u'me'avodah kasha. They couldn't hear him. You need to have time. You have to make time. If you don't have time for yourself, you're basically saying, I gave up on life. Life is not a challenge. Life is, that's it. You basically gave up. You need to make time. It makes no difference. That's why the first question you asked when you come to Shemayim, Kavat aitim la Torah? Did you make time for Torah? Did you make time for your human existence? Did you hate, or were you just in survival all the time? There's no excuse. If you have a limited time, you still have to make that time. It's hard work. It's difficult. Believe me, I have a job and we just had a new baby. I'm not saying that I'm an example, but there's always excuses. Makes no difference who you are. And the Gemara says the poorest person, Hillel, will be the one that will the richest person doesn't have an excuse, and the poorest person doesn't have an excuse. There's no excuse for you not making time for yourself, for your personality, for your personal development. There's no excuse. It makes no difference how hard you're working, how many kids you have, how much responsibility you have. You have time. You have time. And that is unacceptable, to just not make time for your idealism, for your values, for your personality, right? It's true. You need to work. You need to put out effort for the war of existence. But the fact that it becomes an obsession, that's unacceptable. And that comes from Paro. We learned it. V'chen hi etzat hayetzer mamash abnei adam ki ish milchama hu milmad armimut. He's a man of war. The Yetzer Hara is a man of war. He's there, and he's melumad be'armimut. He has tricks and techniques and the evil in the world, and you cannot survive unless simu levavchem al dachichem. You have this voice that's telling you the Yetzer Hara is not a person. It's the desire for survival. It's a war. It's a crisis. If it's a crisis, if it's an emergency, if it's a time of war, then who has time for Torah learning, for reviewing my personality? I'm just trying not to drown. I'm trying to keep my butt above water. Silence those war bells. You're not in war. It's not an emergency. You have time to deal with your life, with your internal life. And that's what we're talking about. And that is what Shlomo Meir said, Al titen shena leinecha v'tumah lefapecha. Don't fall asleep. And that's exactly what I read a beautiful thing once. What do I do if I'm tired? Sleep less. What? I'm always tired. Sleep less. Get up a half an hour earlier and give to your soul. Learn Torah. Daven. It doesn't make any sense, but that's the way it works. If you're overtired, sleep less. But still, you need your 6 hours, you need your 8 hours, whatever you need. But give to your soul. You guys are now, if you're in yeshiva, you have all day to do it. But the real test is when you go into life. Are you going to keep living these messages? Are you going to keep making time for your Torah, for your personality, for right? This is the real secret. That's what the Chazal say. First question, you get to Shemaim. Kavatetim Torah. Did you put it in your calendar? Did you make it a priority? Or did you just let the battle of life, I have to make a living, it's a mitzvah. No. And if you don't take care of it, one last thing the Ramchal says here that's very important. I want you to know, even if you try to do everything you can to protect yourself, and bekochol natzel, you can't do it. God will help you. But God will only help you if you help yourself. If you help yourself and you do your best to really be aware, then God will help you. But if you don't want, if you're not trying, if you don't care, then no one's going to help you. And unfortunately, the difficulty you're going to reach in your life is the only thing that could wake you up. A person that's drunk and you can't talk to him. He needs to bang his head on the wall and get sober, and then he's able to. So you can't have compassion in someone who doesn't have compassion on himself. In enanili mili, which is, we have to care about ourselves. We have to say, I want to take control of my life. That's the overview. Next week we talk about how do we do it. But just to understand, this is the reality. This is what you're dealing with. These are the challenges. Now I understand it. I know what it's about. I'm aware. Now give me the tools. And I know I need to pray also, and I need God's help. It's not going to happen on my own. The challenges are bigger than I can handle. Thank you, everybody. And looking forward to